All right, everybody. Hi, it's Stacy from Stacy's All Booked. You guys are here to watch us discuss season 2 of the BBC Sherlock TV series. I'm here with some friends. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Go ahead. Go first. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. I'm John, and I'm from Cardiff in Wales, which is in the UK. Yes, and I'll go to Steve.
I'm Steve from talk about books and stuff, and this is my wife, Brandy.
Hello.
She's the brains of the operation.
In bringing up the rear in the caboose, I am Jeff Lane. I am a writer, and amongst other things.
What do you write, Jeff? Let us know.
I write speculative thrillers such as The Champion Saga, This Paper World, This Burning World, and time travel thrillers like One Way and The Three Scrooges.
Hey, I want to read The Three Scrooges, by the way, because I love The Christmas Carol. And so I'm really excited to read that and see what that one is, because you said it's like a prequel, but not a prequel.
It could be a prequel or a sequel, because, time travel could be either or a midquel. What would happen if it was written?
Oh, I'm excited. This sounds so good. I'm going to have to read everything, though. Brandy has talked me into reading them all.
And just want to plug Raoul's Howdy Partner Book Club. They are reading The Three Scrooges in December.
Oh, I was going to read it in December.
Yeah, so we're going to have a discussion and everything in December. So
I'll read it with them.
very festive.
It's a good Christmas read, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's first start with the overall feelings, and then we'll go episode by episode. Sound good to everybody?
Sure.
So starting with you, Sean, what were your overall feelings about season 2?
If I had to sum it up simply, I'd say I probably didn't appreciate it as much as the first season. I thought it wasn't quite as new and different, and we were all used to the new setting for a Sherlock mystery by season 2, but still very good. I can go on.
I agree. I think there was a tonal change in this season that was a little bit different. It took me a minute to kind of adjust to it because we got so used to the setting, and I can appreciate that they mixed it up and they tried different things in different settings, and so it was still good. It just wasn't. It was a little strange.
I disagree. I thought it was actually better for me than the second season. It was funnier. The comic game was stepped up. That Staying Alive ringtone. In the very beginning, it's like just there it had me. So I thought it was good. I liked it.
I think I'm gonna split the vote here and go with Brandy. I thought it was a step up. Season 2 kind of I liked the character moments with Sherlock and John better, and we get to see some of. I felt there were some cracks forming in Sherlock's character. The comedy was definitely better, and we got more Moriarty, which I love that character so much. So more Moriarty.
I have to agree with Brandy and Jeff on this, so we win. I liked this season better than the first one, but I think part of that, although all of these episodes, the 6 episodes that we watched so far, all very, very good. The second episode in season 2, the Hounds of Baskerville, was probably my favorite because I read the story right before watching it. And there was a lot of Easter eggs in it, much like the first season. So if you've read the books, I really think they did a great job, and kind of hats off to people who have read the books. So, but there are no spoilers. So you can read the stories and still be able to watch the episodes that inspired it, that are inspired by it, and get a whole different story. So it's very well done. But I liked season 2 better because I thought that you got more interaction with John and Holmes, and those two are they're the quintessential duo.
You said hats off to people who read the books, but I say hats on to people who like the Deer Hunter hat.
Yes. I think that part is so funny that in the first season when they have to hide themselves and he just happens to grab the hunting hat. It's great.
And it just stays throughout the season as this running joke. I thought that was great.
Yes.
I love
And then he gets all mad. He's like, it's got ear flaps. What are you supposed to do?
That was pretty good.
Cool at the end. I won't jump to the end, but the fact that he kind of owned it at the end, he accepted it when he walked out to see the press. Well, that was really lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to talk about each episode?
Sure.
So, starting with episode 1, we get our first look at Irene Adler, which in the books is actually a very short story where she's introduced. And I think it's the only story where she's actually in it. But she's a very interesting character, and I really liked her in this episode. What did you guys think? Brandy?
I liked her. She was interesting and intriguing. I was worried I wasn't gonna like her, but I thought she was good. And it was, I don't know. I just thought I was like, oh great, Sherlock's gonna have a love interest. I don't know. This is kind of weird, but it actually like turned out pretty good for me. Like it was nice to see him vulnerable in some ways, you know.
Were you surprised at all about how that turned out? The twists?
Yeah, I was. I wasn't the whole thing where she died at the end. I thought, oh man. And then they show that it was him there and she didn't really get her head cut off. I was happy because I kind of, even though she was just this like this awful person, she wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like one of those characters that I don't know if she does all these shady things in life. Like, I mean, come on, what she does with the men and stuff. But I thought she was endearing a little, so.
Yeah, I think she became endearing because Sherlock was endeared to her. Like, otherwise, you know, she could have been a villain. If Sherlock decided to hate her, we would probably hate her. But the fact that she was enigmatic and you started to see that, you know, Sherlock might actually have some emotions and not be just a robot, was I think why we were kind of drawn to her and like, oh, she's not just a villainess. Ooh, I would say mustache twirling villainess, but she probably didn't have the mustache. She was weird mustache.
I thought she was very intelligent, and I thought he appreciated her intelligence really, really well, and her ability to be as deep, as conniving, as twisted, as cunning, almost as he. I'm sure he wouldn't have ever admitted that she was as much as she, but close to. I think he really respected that about her.
Yeah, he met his match a little with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think she rattled him from time to, I mean, of course, coming out completely naked, you know, was, and with Sherlock, you can never tell sometimes. It's like, is he really rattled or is he faking being rattled to give them, you know, make them feel a little bit more secure so he can pull the rug out from under them? But I think she did kind of, you know, come at him from left field from time to time, which did rattle him.
Was that the one too where Sherlock went to the palace naked in the sheet, and then she comes out naked? A lot of naked in that one.
Yeah.
But it was so funny. That was so funny.
The funny thing is,
Love how
I'm
he is with
watching,
his brother.
yeah, just their rivalry. I'm watching The Crown right now as well. So when I'd forgotten that they were at Buckingham Palace, but I thought, oh, this kind of reminds me of Buckingham Palace in The Crown. And then John and Sherlock start giggling at each other because they were in Buckingham Palace and he's sitting there in a sheet.
Buck
That was
naked.
good.
You're saying something, Sean?
Was I? I just thought that they came across as being quite out of their depth when they were in the palace. That was quite nice. I think there was a bit more humanity throughout the whole episode. Actually, Sherlock was, well, the way he was towards Molly. I know it was horrible to her, but then as soon as he realised he was horrible, he became human again. Very sorry for her. Buckingham Palace had both seemed really out of their depth and intimidated by it, which didn't feel. I imagine Sherlock would be annoyed by his own intimidation because he wants to rise above it and become aloof and indifferent to things like that. So, but I found that throughout the whole episode, a lot more humanity, I thought.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I did like how they laughed at it though. Like at first they were just, and then they realized how ridiculous the whole thing was, and they were able to laugh at it. And the part where John sits next to him, he goes, "You're not wearing any trousers, are you?" Like, nope.
I mean, John's humor in this season was just good. I wrote one thing down that John said. I always hear. Wait, what does he say? Because Sherlock said something like about punching him in the face or something, and he said, "I always hear punch me in the face when I look at you," and it was just like, I don't know. The context, I can't remember exactly, but I wrote that down, and I remember just laughing so hard at it. And then there were thumbs in the fridge. It's always the naughty part.
I just now figured out how to do the comments thing. So, hi Raul.
Hi, Raul.
Quick and longer than that.
Raul read a book while you were figuring out the comments thing.
Actually, Raul's he's taking it easier now.
That's
Yeah,
good.
he's taking a little break.
Yeah, that's what he tells everybody. That's so that we don't feel bad when we don't read as much as him.
Yeah,
He's doing us a service.
he feels bad for us.
He's a good friend.
I do like the John humor in this was really good, or just the humor in general. I do like this episode. To me, I think was probably one of the funniest. Like when he's describing the suspect from that first case where the guy's standing out in the bog and gets killed, and the motorist is there and his car backfires, and Sherlock's describing the guy quite poor, just not a good description of this person. And then he kind of leans to the side, and the guy's like right behind him. It's just great comic beats all throughout.
The line where Sherlock and the prostitute lady, whose name I've forgotten for a second, they're getting it on really, really well. And what is it? He says to her, "John Hamish Watson, if you're looking for baby names." That was a brilliant.
Yeah.
That was good.
I love too how John seemed more like a ladies' man in this season. Like he was always with a girlfriend. And I don't know if you guys noticed this or if this even meant anything or if it was a thing, but that the one girl he was dating, she was from Game of Thrones. The one that was married to Robb Stark in Game of Thrones. I can't remember her name, but so then right when she was in a scene like adjacent to him playing the violin, and he was playing something that was like really close to the theme of Game of Thrones. And I wondered if that was like some kind of like
Easter egg.
Yeah, or is that just me hearing that because I just saw that girl's face? I don't know. But he was composing like a sad melody, and there was a big thing about how sad he was because of this lady. And
that was a good moment when he was talking about all of John's girlfriends, and he's like, "And the one after so and so," and she's like, "There is no one after so and so."
Yeah, the boring teacher, I think is what he called her. Poor John. So, I forgot what I was going to say.
You mentioned the scene with Molly, the Christmas scene where he's, Sherlock kind of constructs the present that she got, and it turns out it's for him. There was another scene where you kind of circle back around with Molly in the third episode. Those were some of my favorite scenes of seeing Sherlock become human and have these moments with Molly. And I feel bad for Molly, but I think she is definitely bringing out something in Sherlock.
Probably more than Watson, she brought out his humanity, and just by being just sweet and innocent and natural and honest, she just undid him. He was completely undone by her, and the way he kissed her after that present scene, it was so touching and warm, and completely not like Sherlock, I thought. So I agree with him.
Yeah, I haven't gotten. I've read, I'd say, half of the Sherlock stories. So there's 4 novels and a ton of short stories. And she doesn't come into any of the ones I've read so far. And so I wonder why they created her character for the TV show. Like, what is that her purpose in order to show you as the viewer his vulnerable side and the times where he realizes how awful he can be and how he tries, because it really is for him an effort to be thoughtful and to have emotions or to show those emotions. It doesn't come naturally for him.
Is it a foil? Is that the term for the character that's put in place to show you attributes of another one? I think it's called a foil. Jeff, maybe you know.
Jeff probably knows.
Foil.
Sure, let's go with that.
It might be a
big word.
term. Sorry.
Yeah, that I really I like that she's in there, because you have to imagine John, he's still his character, it doesn't make sense for his character to play that part. He reminds Sherlock a lot of his lacking, but he also is so enamored by his abilities that he kind of lets him be who he needs to be, right? He reminds him some here and there when he goes a little too far, but he knows that that's the way Sherlock is, and he's accepted it. So it makes sense. It doesn't make sense for his character to be the one that brings the human out of him. So that's why Molly is, I think, so important, especially in the TV shows, to kind of show you when he steps on toes, and instead of him just dismissing it when he realizes it, he tries to fix it. And I think that says a lot about Sherlock's character, because he, unlike, Moriarty, when he recognizes his faults, he tries to repair it. Where Moriarty's like, I don't care about anybody.
And he may not always realize he's hurting someone's feelings. Like, he says something and he doesn't realize that, why would that hurt their feelings, But then when he does, it's like, oh, I guess I messed up,
Yeah. And when he cuts John, I think John gets frustrated, and I think Sherlock can deal with that. John gets mad at him back, whereas Molly is hurt, and I think that shows a different side of that to Sherlock, and so he has to react differently to it.
Do you think it's different, the way Sherlock reacts to these situations, than he was from season 1? Do you think Sherlock is different from the way he was?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the progression in that character, for sure. So I have glimpses in season 1, and in this season, I definitely feel like they're pulling that out more.
Yeah.
And you see that how important that change in him is in the 3rd season, because if he didn't have those human connections, Moriarty wouldn't have been able to play that game with him, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as effective. So it was important for him, his character, to learn to make human connections. And the people that he talks about at the end, when he's naming the people that Moriarty can hurt, you're kind of surprised, especially when he says Molly, right? Because you see that sometimes it felt like he was play acting. That, like we talked about in the 1st season, that when he realized he needed her, then he was, attentive and said nice things, but otherwise he ignored her.
Yeah.
And that changes this season, because she now becomes somebody important to him. And I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
And same with Mrs. Hudson. I was glad that he,
Definitely.
Oh,
I love
you
Mrs.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah.
nobody messes with us.
Yeah, it's funny too, because he has that whole thing, and nobody can call my mom a bad name except for me. Thing going on, because he gets all mad at if anyone says anything or does anything to Mrs. Hudson, but then he lashes out at her.
Yeah. Oh, do shut up.
Yeah.
Didn't he say something like Britain would fall if it wasn't for Mrs. Hudson? Something like
Yeah.
that. Britain would fall. That's quite powerful.
Get busy, Jeff.
I'll reach out, Raoul. I might have a sneak peek I can send along to you.
Ooh.
That scene where Mrs. Hudson was rough handled a little bit by the CIA guys was great. And when he calls Lestrade and he says, he's going to fall out a window.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
What about his relationship
That
with
she was in on it. Oh, sorry, what?
What about his relationship with Mycroft? Did you find that different from the 1st season as well? The Mycroft relationship.
We were just talking about Sherlock being kind of a psychopath or sociopath, I guess, and not understanding emotions. But I think Mycroft is right there with him. They have that scene where Mycroft gives him the Christmas cigarette, just the one. And they ask each other, because I think they hear someone crying or someone passed away in the hospital. And they seem to be asking each other, like, why do people care? Like,
Yeah.
So I've got to wonder if that runs in the Holmes family. Like they're all emotionally stunted, either because of their massive intelligence or some way they were brought up or something like that.
And just the fact that they found themselves unexpectedly spending Christmas together for a few minutes, that their parties were just, I mean, you'd think family members, you'd see your brother for Christmas, but they were like, yeah, I guess it's Christmas.
Yeah. But they were spending time together, and I think it was a little bit more family orientated. It's horrible to use that phrase because they're not at all like normal families, but if anything, more than season 1, they're a bit more like a family, and that develops later on, doesn't it? As we found out, with the mother and father.
So, Jeff, you brought up the scene in the morgue where he goes and sees Irene's body, and he's with Mycroft. And one of the things I noticed in that scene was how they kept switching views. I don't know if you guys noticed the filming angles. There were like 4 different filming angles for that. If you get a chance to go back and watch it, I thought it was done really well, because there's like one angle was seeing the 2 of them from the hallway, and there was one through the window, and there's one through the morgue window, and they kept switching back and forth. And if you listen to who's talking when they switch all of those, I thought it was a very interesting way to do that scene. And and especially when they were talking about certain things, the angle where you could see the family in the background that's crying. And I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought you guys would have caught that. Jeez. I was paying attention to wardrobes. I was paying attention to music.
I was paying attention to the music.
Again. I'm very jealous you've got the skill to notice that. I really am. There's only one moment, we'll come to it in a minute, on season 3, where I noticed the camera angle. That's the only time. So the fact you picked up on that, I'm very envious.
I'm going to go back and look for sure.
That's a great catch, Stacey, because I think, with the Holmes brothers, there is we don't want to see them in the way we see our normal characters. I think, we want to see them as a little bit alien, a little bit. We want to be off-put as viewers, going, this is odd, because they are both odd people, and kind of they constantly say how they are set apart from ordinary people. So I think maybe those camera angles are meant to enhance that for the viewer.
Yeah, I think so too. I had to watch it over twice because I was like, is there something to this? I noticed the camera angle kept changing, and I wanted to know if there was a tie to the dialogue, and I think there was a little bit, what they were talking about and the way that the view changed. So I'd be interested to see what you guys think of that scene. Go back and rewatch it.
It's definitely a show that relies on its visual style a lot, whether it's graphics or Sherlock going into his mind palace, or all of those types of things. Really, there's thought put into how it's presented on the screen. So that wouldn't surprise me if that was very intentional, and it's a good pickup, Stacey.
Thank you. Oh, his mind palace, that scene was really neat.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Great.
There's a lot of those in there, though, where he's having to visualize, like the map when they were trying to find where the kids, the Hansel and Gretel, were hidden, and all of that. Those visuals are all really good. It's a good way to bring out his thought process in a visual way, instead of him just all the time explaining what he was thinking. So you get tired. In season 1, it was always him telling John, this is what happened. But in season 2, you got a little bit more of his thought process instead of just him narrating, well, this is what happened. Kind of like the end of Monk, every episode. Well, this is what happened. I don't know if you guys ever watched that.
No, I've never seen it.
Monk is a great show.
Once. I know that he's not the usual person you'd pick to be a series detective, but yeah, good character.
Yes, he's it's a whole nother take on the Sherlock Holmes character. Instead of being a sociopath, he's got OCD. So that's what limits him as a detective versus Sherlock not being able to connect with humans. Monk literally can't connect with humans because he's a germaphobe and an OCD, and it's really kind of interesting. He has like a John Watson type character who assists him in his detecting, and I think it's a really good show. And it's funny. It's hilarious.
I like funny.
And
But
it's really great. He's not handsome as well. It's really great to see a lead in a TV show who's not a good looker. Well, that's great. More power to you.
I was going to say to Stacey's point about being able to see Sherlock's thought process more, you really kind of get a sense of that's what it's like in his head. You know, felt like, man, this poor guy sometimes, you know, like this is what goes on in there. And they really did a good job of that, I think.
A little bit of that in season 1, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit, but it
Not
really
as
wasn't
much.
as much. It was more in the first season of him, you know, like I can't even do it. Like all the steps. And he still did that in this season, but he would go through all these just really fast steps of how he got to some conclusion. And but this time it was more visual too. He still did that stuff, but it was more visual.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I think it something about it annoyed me a bit, and I couldn't work out what it was until we started talking this evening. It suddenly dawned on me, it's Minority Report. The Wine Palace, as I say.
Yeah.
That was a little irritating. That was the whole hand movements and stuff along with it.
Yeah.
That and Tony Stark. Tony Stark does a lot of the holographic stuff, moving it out of the way.
Wasn't it like Johnny Mnemonic did that kind of thing too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that's good.
Do you think that Christmas cigarette was what it wasn't just one cigarette, and that's why they start the next episode with him trying to quit smoking again?
Oh yeah.
You know, like as an ex-smoker, I just felt that's how you feel. And he's telling the guy, smoke. And then he's over there like just breathing it in. I mean, it's just like,
I had a
it's
theory,
so funny.
because it was played out. It played out in the next episode. It was manic about cigarettes, wasn't he? In the next episode after. And I just had this thought, because smoking is now so unpolitically correct. But for Sherlock, smoking is a major part of his character in all the books, and always has been. You know, like the meerschaum. So I did wonder if they just had to address that, why he wasn't doing. You know, Deerstalker, they built it in, but that bit, and also the homosexuality and the drug taking, that's all coming out. But the smoking hadn't come out, so I thought maybe they had to address it in some way. And the way they did it was natural, someone trying to get off cigarettes.
Yeah.
Well, the first season he did have the like 8
The patch.
patches.
They barely touched on it with that nicotine patch, but they kind of made it seem too like it was something he was doing to stimulate his mind.
Oh, that's right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, but still, you kind of got that sense that he's an addictive personality too. So
Yeah.
He is in the books as a very addictive personality, but he tries to play it off as he does it in order to be, you know, a better version of himself. And it's so interesting because the stories are written over a century, maybe 150 years ago, and the mentality about using drugs and everything, the reasons for doing it, all the excuses that he makes are very similar to what we see today in drug abuse. And John, as a doctor, tries to explain to him the harms of both smoking. You know, he's constantly got a pipe in his mouth, and the heroin and all this stuff. And Sherlock's like, yes, but all of those things are second to my amazing mind. And if I can't do this, I don't need to be alive anyway. And it's just, it's interesting to see that in the show, that they tackled that part of his personality. It's one of the things about Elementary, the other TV show, that I didn't really like, is like they focused too much on his drug addiction and less on who Sherlock was as a character. And I think this show does a lot more to keep into the spirit of the books about who Sherlock was. He was addictive, had an addictive personality, but it wasn't who he was.
You know, I think this, you know, when you have someone who's powerful, whether, you know, be powerful in the mind like Sherlock, or, you know, a comic book character like Superman that's, you know, nothing can harm him, that you need weaknesses. Otherwise, they become a very boring character very quickly. And I think the addiction challenges, the emotional stuntedness of why he needs people to help him with other people. And then as we see here, both in this season, both he and Mycroft were played to show that they are fallible, especially to Moriarty. So I think that just as the viewer, we're not just like going to sit back 90 minutes and watch Sherlock be brilliant and win. We're going to watch Sherlock stumble and fall and try to win, but it's not necessarily a given.
Yeah. So let's talk about season 2. I mean, episode 2. We kind of, glazed over episode 1. I thought episode 2 was my favorite. Of course, I did like Mycroft in the last. I mean, not Moriarty's role. The casting was done so well on that character. But what did you guys think of episode 2 with the Hound of Baskerville? Nothing?
More humor. Love the humor. Really love it. There's a few points. There was a couple of points where I thought the humor was a bit too forced. I'll come back to that in a minute. But the humor I thought was really great. They spent a lot of time thinking about how to bring it in and pull it in. But good.
It had one of my my bucket list things. I love. I've never been there, but I love the idea of quaint English villages and pubs and things like that. So seeing them out of London, out of their element, and off in this other setting was kind of cool to me. Kind of scratched that itch for me.
They don't exist. We make it up for you guys, so you want to come over here. But we're all built up cities. I'm sorry, it's grey and concrete. What am I going to say?
It's funny because when we were watching, we were looking at the rolling hills and the Baskerville, and we're like, we need to ask Sean if that's really what it looks like. Is this a thing? Like, is this really a place?
It's like Detroit with a Cockney accent. All of it.
Just paved. They paved over the whole island.
And planted plastic trees everywhere.
I like. Oh, go ahead.
I like the possibility of something supernatural that you were kind of wondering, is there something supernatural here? Pretty much the whole episode. Or it then kind of evolved to like, did somebody create this monster? And then it evolved something psychological, which was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be supernatural. I'm really glad they didn't go that route because it wouldn't have fit. It seems kind of strange.
Yeah. I do also like that we have, and as the viewer, I'm again going back and forth on, when Sherlock had those moments of fear, like when he's really freaking out to John and saying, he's for the first time ever, he's felt scared. I was like, is he faking it? So if they're being observed, the observer is now taking this information back, or was that genuine? Did he really get rattled? And I think by the end, it's a little bit of both. Like he got rattled, but he was handling it as a fact in the case. Like something got to me emotionally, made me feel fear, and now I have to figure that out.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because he automatically said, it has to be a drug because I'm not scared. He tells John, I knew right away there was something that was mentally altering me mentally because I can't feel this way. I thought that was interesting. Anything else about episode 2?
So that humor part, and I loved it, but I didn't like it as well. The bit with the, well, I don't know if you have it in the States, but when people meet clandestinely in a car park for purposes of satisfying your sexual pleasure, in the UK, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's been going on for decades, and they call it dogging. I don't know if you have that at all.
What do we call it here?
It's a real cultural thing over here. Random people, strangers meet in a car park and just get it on. But it's called dogging. I wasn't sure if the fact it's called dogging was kind of a pun itself, but the fact they were using the Morse code thing for Watson. I thought it was really funny, but the thing I didn't like about it was it actually contributed nothing to the plot. It was pointless. It did nothing to move things forward. So it was only there for its comic effect, and that annoyed me a little bit. That he spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of talent for nothing that drove the story forward. So anyway. I'll stop.
So, okay, so that's a thing. Is that?
Yeah, it's a real thing. Google it, but only if you've got an understanding part. I will not.
Well, I took that as like I went more of like a lover's lane kind of. Maybe that's what we would call that in the United States. Although I don't.
This is multiple people. This is sometimes dozens of people, none of whom know each other, and they're all willing.
Oh goodness!
But swingers partners? Do you have swingers parties? Swingers?
Yeah,
Okay.
but not in cars.
But no one knows each other, and it's in the dark. Same thing.
Yeah, here it's like teenagers that don't have anywhere to go and they find a hill to go up on, or like what do you call it, make out point or something like that.
Well, you guys know how to party.
I know.
I've read about it. That's all.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, though. So the flashing, all that really did is it separated John from Sherlock and Henry. I think that was the guy who was had called him into the village. So he was getting these Morse code flashes, UMR, Q, whatever they were. But you're right, but that never panned out other than to just separate John away.
Yeah.
And that fact did come back because John wasn't affected by the chemicals in that first scare because he was physically separated away from them.
So I'll give you guys a secret. That scene does have a significance in the books, which I think is another one of those, you think something's going to happen because that happens in the book and it turns out to be something different. And so if you read it, it was even funnier for me because when he gets there, you think it's going to be the same situation as the book, and it turns that obviously does not happen in the books, but he does see flashing lights and goes to investigate, but it's not people in a car. So it was hilarious.
Would it be a horse-drawn carriage instead?
No, not that.
Don't come a knocking.
It turned out to in the book? Was it something that was part of the case?
It turns out to be a red herring in the book, but I don't want to say any more without it being a spoiler.
Okay.
But this is the thing with the show versus the book. A lot of the big evidence pieces, things that really become a part of solving the mystery, are seen in the show, but they're insignificant. Like Sean said, it absolutely had nothing to do with it. Didn't help them solve anything. But they're like the luminous bunny. That is actually a nod to the story as well, which is actually a very significant part of them solving the crime in the story. But it has nothing to do with this, with the mystery in the TV show. So I just think those are. I really do suggest you guys read the stories and then rewatch the show because you'll see that and you'll be like, it's brilliant. I think it's done brilliant.
So it leads the readers astray to go, oh, this is just like in the book.
Yeah, and then it turns out not to be the case at all. And in the light thing, I was just like, I really thought he was going to find something out there, just like he does in the book. And it turned out to be that. I was like, oh goodness.
What did you think of the? So the other thing they started to unpick then were the not accusations, but the cultural references about their homosexuality when they went to the inn. I thought that was quite funny. And, did I get this right? Didn't it turn out it was the inn owner and his chef that were that were gay in that rather than right? Okay, I wasn't sure if I quite got that right.
Yeah.
My radar was turned off, obviously.
They were a couple and just sort of assumed that Sherlock and John were a couple. Like, all right, good.
But Watson's obviously very immediately defensive about the whole thing. Very good.
Well, I think that's another reason why the writers and the producers set John up with, many girlfriends to show that, he's definitely
straight.
Yeah, he's not going down that path. But it does that humor does keep cropping up again that they're together. And they do have a relationship of sorts. It's it's not traditionally gay, but they definitely love each other and are drawn together just platonically or maybe whatever else you would call that. But.
Yeah. So Sean, are pubs a thing? Are they that big of a deal there? Because we hear all the time about pubs in the UK.
Outside of lockdown, they are a big thing. We went to one on Friday night for the first time in a year and a half, and that's quite a thing. Yeah, pubs they're part of what ties British culture together. I think it's a meeting place for people, for not just for new people that you've never met before, but also culturally for friends. It's a place where if you know people in the village, which doesn't exist, where you can meet, you're going to find your friend in there on a Friday night, and you can have a chat. You can bring your dog. It's almost like an extension of your home, the way it's delivered. There are nuances that have happened in more recent decades where you get sports bars, your equivalent of sports bars, which are much more young people's pubs. If you're into that, fine, but it takes you away from what was originally, I think, the idea of a public house, public house. So yeah, they're a massive thing here, very big thing here.
So do they? Is it true they don't refrigerate the beer that's on tap? Is that a true English thing?
Some don't, and the ones that don't refrigerate, the ones that have literally the big kegs of ale up on the shelf behind, who are drawing it straight out of those barrels, they're probably the ones that today are much more popular and successful than the ones who draw the very cold stuff up from the cellar with gas pressure and refrigeration, gassy lagers and things like that. But yeah, mixture of both. But more old-fashioned pubs are a lot more popular these days, who sell the real ales. They call them real ales.
As former beer, we don't drink beer anymore, but we were on a beer kick for a long time. But when you refrigerate and when you serve cold beer, you don't get the same notes and the same tastes as you do with room temperature beer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a no-no to serve cold beer. You want to drink it at room temperature, a little chill, but not too.
Depends on the beer, though.
I was going to say, I'll leave my Coors Light out on the counter, and
the good beer you want to drink.
Yeah, if it's Corona or something, you need a frosted glass and a lime, and it needs to be cold.
It has to be cold to taste decent, but
just
the good beer.
Sort of good.
We have a lot of breweries here, especially in this area, which makes it really hard to not drink beer. But
I think you guys have got an amazing your own culture. It's been around for several decades. I spent some time. I started in Seattle, and the microbreweries around there were really big things back in the mid-90s. So they just really started kicking off. Fantastic beer. Is it red? I think red beer, red ale. Beautiful stuff. Really sophisticated stuff. I think you guys are really on a mass. And your IPAs are amazing as well. And your APAs.
Yeah.
Good.
And we drink. No, I'm craving beer.
I know.
Sorry.
Don't do it.
So when you come over to the States, we'll take you to the microbreweries here.
Oh, beautiful. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And the same for you guys.
Yeah, we'll take them on a tour.
Can I just ask one more question? There's another question I didn't really understand. Do you mind, Stacey, if I ask a question before we move?
No, not at all.
It was about when Lestrade turned up in the village. I just didn't understand why he got. Maybe I missed it. I didn't hear it, but he made it sound like he was there accidentally. But it's a bit too much of a coincidence. He's 200 miles from London in a random direction.
I think Mycroft called him in.
Yeah, Mycroft was involved in that.
I didn't catch that either.
I must have had a wee.
Yeah, it was a quick explanation. I think that Mycroft was somehow involved in getting him there, and he made up the story of why he was there.
I'm just pleased it wasn't coincidental. That would have been a bit hard to swallow. So thank you.
I do love
it still doesn't make sense why Mycroft would have called Lestrade. He's got all these people at his beck and call, and he sends Lestrade. But
yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that actually intrigues me about Mycroft, because we get little bits and pieces of him. He's part of this, gentleman's club with no talking, and he's involved in the British government, and he works for the Queen, sort of, and but it's almost like Mycroft's got this little club off to the side. Like, he's very comfortable in using John, like assigning John to things, and now he's assigning Lestrade, or Greg, as we call him when he's out in the village. But so I almost wonder if like Mycroft has maneuvered himself to have this little skunk works on the side that he's manipulating or in control of. But Mycroft is, the more we go on, the more I'm intrigued by Mycroft and who he actually is, what he is. He's the one, going back to the first episode, that was setting up that whole airplane full of dead people thing. that operation that took years in the planning. So he's definitely some sort of operative. So that the fact that it was Mycroft that dispatched Lestrade, that actually was kind of intriguing to me. Like, how deep is he into these things, and why does he care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He cares a lot about Sherlock, which is why you think about it. If you switch Sherlock and Mycroft, I don't think they would act the same in their respective positions. Mycroft obviously cares a lot about his brother and wants to do a lot. I don't think Sherlock would do the same if he were in Mycroft's shoes. What do you think?
That would be interesting to see. Is, as much as Sherlock likes to stay aloof, and would if Mycroft needed him, would Sherlock come to his aid?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a good chance to see that.
In season 1, we were assassinating their characters by talking about their sociopathic tendencies, and I think it was we decided that Moriarty is a sociopath who just wants to do evil, but Sherlock is a sociopath who doesn't care whether he's evil or not. He just wants to be right. What about Mycroft? Is he on that spectrum?
I think so.
Good question. I gotta wonder if Mycroft is just a game player. Like, he loves moving the pieces around the board, but he doesn't want to get his hands dirty. Like, he's a game player with kit gloves. Like, I just see him being very prissy and not wanting to mix it up, but he loves the idea of maneuvering things and people and situations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no spoilers, but I happened to watch ahead to season 3, episode 1.
Oh, you monster.
He gets his hands dirty. Just say it.
I did think of you, Sean, when in episode 3, there's a line where Moriarty talks to him about, being one of the angels or something like that. And Sherlock responds that he may be on the side of the angels, but he is not one. And that you pegged that when we were talking about series 1, John. That was good.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about the last episode. What did you guys think of I'll be honest, I've seen this season before, or the series before. I watched it, but I was still very surprised about everything that happened in the last episode, except for I kind of knew how it was going to end, because how do you forget something like that? But like, I forgot about Moriarty being arrested and that whole courtroom thing, and how he ended up, like, all of that was very interesting and manipulative. I didn't think at the time, but when Sherlock is confronting him and he says, so basically you were just showing people what you are capable of. That was his whole purpose of doing that, was to say, see what I can do. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I remember I alluded to this when we were discussing series 1 a couple of weeks ago, that this cliffhanger ending was the one that got to me the most, because I think I had caught on to Sherlock sometime between season 2 and season 3, before season 3 came out. So I binge watched the first 6 episodes and then had to wait. And all I could rack my brain was, how did he do it? How did he do it? Well, it has to involve Molly somehow. But, I was just like, and I couldn't wait to get back to season 3 to figure out how he did it. Is Moriarty really dead? But yeah, this episode, I think, was one of my favorites so far, because of, we get to see Moriarty more in action, showing off, as you say, and he's just so stylish about how he does everything. Coming in and putting on the music and waltzing around as you think he's going to steal the crown jewels, but no, he's just intentionally getting himself arrested. And I had forgotten all of that part of it, because it was the ending that, you're right, just that is the scene that, just him kind of doing the swan dive off the top there. But yeah, great episode.
It is a good episode. What do you guys think about how easily Moriarty was able to manipulate Sherlock and put him in the position where he had to ultimately make that choice?
So look, I must confess, I've seen this whole thing before. That scene at the end on the roof, I had to watch that 3 times. The last time was today. I'm still not sure I really understand it. So the whole manipulation, that's the question. How did it work that Moriarty was so easily able to manipulate Sherlock, arguably one of the most intelligent people in the world, into that situation? And I'm still not completely convinced I'm sold on the whole thing, but possibly because I don't remember what happens after to Moriarty. I'm not looking at you because I don't want any spoilers.
So,
away with their eyes.
the way I came up with it was, again, my back and forth. Is Sherlock really on his heels, or is he in control the whole time? I think there were two things for me. One, it does show the growth that, can't remember who mentioned at the beginning, that he does now care for these three people who are being threatened. I think it was Lestrade, Molly, and John, right? Those were the three that were.
And Miss Hudson.
Oh, and Mrs. Hudson. All right. So he truly does genuinely care for them, and so Moriarty played on that, which it would take someone as genius as Moriarty to know that a sociopath has now developed these human emotions. But also, Sherlock had pre-figured it out, and so had a way out of it. So he didn't really manipulate, Moriarty didn't really manipulate him, but did Sherlock ultimately manipulate Moriarty? Like, that looks pretty legit, what he did to himself at the end. So
But we know it didn't happen, right?
What's that?
We know that it wasn't real, so yeah, he had to have known something in
Right,
order to.
Sherlock survived it, but looks like Moriarty shot himself in the head. And he did that because it was the only way to ensure Sherlock would have to follow through on his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that was Sherlock having the upper hand all along, going like, look, I know I'm getting out of this safe, but I'm going to push your buttons right back and get you out of the equation.
Mm-hmm. No, that is really good. Yeah, wow. Sherlock is pretty devious now that you put it that way.
Yeah. I felt like he was onto him. That's why he went to Molly and told her, I'm going to have to die. But at the time, you felt like he was just going to die. But in the end, you're like, okay, he had to die. Like,
Well, that's the first thing.
Die.
yeah, and I right away was like, I was like, he's gonna fake his death. I called it.
Because my reaction was, what? And then
I'm like, he's not dead.
He's not dead. It's
There's
Molly.
more seasons.
Yeah.
But it's Molly, because he went to Molly and he said, I need you. What did he say to her? It was really good. I need you, or I'm gonna need you, or something. And she was there.
In the montage at the end of the episode, they show her, right? Don't they show Molly? Isn't she part of the...
No, she wasn't even at the funeral. I don't think I don't remember seeing her at all.
No, she wasn't at the funeral.
Oh, okay.
After that
Well,
scene,
actually,
where
did they
he
even
was,
show a funeral? They just showed his grave.
yeah.
Mr.
But
Mrs. Hudson and John walk up to it, but
Yeah, they don't show her at all after that time that Sherlock gets in touch with her. So
the line from that pulled on my heartstrings was, "You do count."
yeah,
Because she had said earlier on that she doesn't count, and he said, "You do," and that was really touching. And I had written in my notes, self-doubt, like, is Sherlock really wondering if he's going to get out of this? And so he kind of needs to make amends with Molly before this plan kicks off.
In case he's not able to get out of it.
And when you watch the sequence of it, if they hadn't shown Sherlock at the very end, I would have gone into season 3 really wondering, like, did he pull it off? Because just the sequence of, from when he falls, then you see a body, him or somebody, hit the pavement. John, of course, is knocked by the bicyclist, so he's got a few moments of confusion. So there's clearly some opportunity for something else to be happening, some sleight of hand. But he runs up, he flips over Sherlock, he sees his face, he sees the blood on the pavement. Like, it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for this got faked somehow.
yeah.
Like, Sherlock was mysteriously in a plane that went down. You've got a lot of visual evidence telling you this really happened.
I
going to
think
be interesting to find out.
so. Let me hear, Jeff. You already know, so you don't. Well, Sean, you've seen them all as well, right? All the seasons.
A long time ago, and I watched season 3, episode 1 before realising I was watching season 3, episode 1. I was so wrapped up in it, so I thought, oh, stop that and rewind. So yeah, but a long time ago, and I don't remember them very well.
So I'm curious what you guys think. How did he do it?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I know Molly's involved, so there may be some kind of morgue situation that she helped him with, or she knows things about dead bodies, or she has connections to dead bodies. I'm using the air quotes a lot today. I don't know why. But I don't know. It's something with Molly and her connection with the morgue. That's what I'm going with.
I think the butler did it. Just say, putting it out there.
I don't really
Colonel
remember.
Mustard.
In the library
with a knife. Yeah.
I don't really remember how they did it. But I did notice when we were watching, they keep pulling him away, so pulling John away, so he can't actually touch Sherlock. So it's like, was that Sherlock? Was it a different body? Or, were they trying to keep him from realizing that, yes, it was Sherlock, but he's not really dead? And if he's not really dead, how did he get down there without...
He saw his face, he could see his face, and he took his pulse, didn't he? Those two things.
That's what I thought.
He was trying to take his pulse, but that person pulled his hand away.
Oh. He just didn't get a chance to take it long enough. Yeah, because initially I thought it was, well, it's some sort of cadaver that he arranged with Molly, and if John took the pulse, that would be dead, but we'd never see the face, like the face gets smashed.
And then you see the face, so it has to be...
Right.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Irene Adler, her face got smashed, so Sherlock was identifying it by her not face.
Mm-hmm.
Molly picked up on, like, how does he know what her not face looks like?
Yeah. He said, let me see the whole thing.
Right.
Oh no, I guess we'll have to find out.
What do you think, Stacey?
Well, I don't want
to
say
Have you seen
anything
it? Oh, you've seen
because,
it, right?
yeah, I could be thinking I'm predicting and actually remembering, so I'd rather not say. I just noticed, like, was the bicyclist really accidentally bumped into John, or was that just to buy time? I was looking for things because I already knew that he was alive because I'd seen it, so I was paying more attention to those scenes. So I don't know how much of it I'm remembering and how much of it is just because I was, with my magnifying glass, Sherlock style, paying attention.
Hat.
My
You need the hat. You need the hat.
I need to get a hat for the next stream. I can find one.
Amazon.
I'm gonna make Steve wear one too.
Oh,
No resistance. We're supposed to argue about it a little.
romance I won't read.
to argue.
So there was one point, and I'll keep asking questions, sorry, because I often miss plot points. But when they're on the roof, and Moriarty says to Sherlock, as long as I'm alive, you can save your friends. I didn't really... Do you remember that at all? I'm just going to make the quote right.
So I think it's something like Sherlock figured out that Moriarty would have had some sort of code or safe word or something that would call off the assassins. And so...
Oh, yeah.
Sherlock was basically saying, I can trick you into using that code, or I can manipulate you into using that code to call them off. And so Moriarty's like, not if I'm dead. That will only leave you one choice to save them.
So he's trying to convince Sherlock he was willing to kill himself to ensure that Sherlock committed suicide.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Makes sense now.
Which is, really, really messed up.
I know.
like
he just went to his death knowing that he finally got Sherlock, but he didn't.
But he didn't. Wahaha.
So, but Moriarty is he, or?
I don't know. I mean,
How do you fake that? How do you fake a
know.
bullet in the brain?
Well, how do you fake
How do you
jumping
fake-
off of
yeah.
a building? I mean,
Well, through that.
I hope he's not dead, but I can't imagine a good way for them to make him come back, without it being like, come on, really?
if anybody could do it, he can, right? I mean,
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
this is
both,
the thing.
that's the thing. Both deaths seemed so unfakeable when you're
Yeah.
watching this that, and if they are two sides of the same coin, if Sherlock could fake his, maybe Moriarty could fake his.
yeah.
But Moriarty would have had to fake it so well that Sherlock thought he was dead, right? Because he thought there's no way out of it now.
And
So,
Sherlock seemed genuinely surprised. Again, you can never tell when Sherlock's acting, but he definitely seemed like he was not expecting that turn of events.
I would never go into a first to blink loses contest with Moriarty, that's for sure.
That's so true.
It's a really crazy game of chicken.
Yeah.
So something you said earlier, Stacey, about the camera shots, the angles and stuff. There was one, and actually I think Brandy mentioned it as well. The first shot on the roof where you've got Moriarty, and I think it's a fisheye lens, and the camera panning really slowly across, and they're playing Staying Alive. I thought that was amazing. The whole 5 seconds of film, but it's just so. I think they put a lot of time and effort and artistic talent into that 1 5-second shot. It's just really brilliant. I thought.
Yeah, because it started the season out with Moriarty's ringtone "Staying Alive," and then it ended the season with Moriarty on the roof, and they're playing "Staying Alive."
Yeah, I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, it was like looking "Staying Alive."
Huh.
I do love that Moriarty was so clever that he was starting to plant seeds of doubt about Sherlock within the police department. So Sergeant Donovan's suspecting him, and Lestrade's trying to cover for him, but then his boss makes him bring him in, and even they're trying to get to John by doing the whole Richard Brooks, which turns out to be Reichenbach. But the the whole he's really just an actor that Sherlock hired to make it seem he was doing all these things. There's a point where even you've been watching, you're now 6 episodes in, and you're pretty sure this is not the case, but and will John fall for it? Will John have these doubts? And I thought that was a great, interesting kind of box we put our hero into, that no matter where he turns, it looks like he's the guilty one. He's the bad one.
Very clever.
Yeah, and how good was Moriarty, like a deer in the headlights, when he walked in and he was bringing in groceries, I guess, to that girl, and he was just like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
He's good. That actor is good.
Yeah.
He just played the innocent guy, or the
Vulnerable.
gay guy that was hanging out with Molly, and you just believe it. It's just really believable acting. He's good. I hope he comes back, but
He's got to come back, right?
he's so good.
We all love the bad ones.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know.
Sorry, we all love the evil ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like.
You gotta have every fairy tale has to have a villain.
That's right.
Isn't that what Moriarty says?
That's right. I do like how Mycroft was infallible or not infallible. I can't remember which way that goes. Fallible. So Mycroft wasn't perfect. Moriarty actually went after Mycroft to get information about Sherlock. So he made Sherlock his obsession, and he used Mycroft and made Mycroft betray Sherlock, which actually got him as far as he did. John figured that out and called Mycroft on it. So this also shows that even though he's a normal, John is pretty smart too and can figure this stuff out, and then confronts Mycroft. I loved that scene as well, and you just kind of see Mycroft deflate, I screwed up.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so when are we meeting for season 3, y'all?
Oh, okay, I had one more thought on this episode before we move on. This is for all the Trekkies out there. Was anybody else getting vibes of Spock's funeral when John is having his talk to Sherlock's gravestone? Anyone? I think we should play those.
I didn't even.
side by
Yeah.
side.
I I didn't even
It's
think
over my
about
head.
that.
Yeah.
Of all the souls I've encountered, his was the most
Yeah,
human.
it's a good Shatner.
Oh, Rick.
It was like beat for beat. It was like the same,
Oh.
Yeah.
very similar. So definitely a Star Trek II fan wrote that little monologue for John, I think.
Yeah.
There was a scene somewhere, and I don't remember which episode. I want to say it was the last episode where John actually calls him Spock. Did you catch that?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was in the last episode. He says something about "Okay, Spock" or something like that. I have to go back and find it, and I'll send you guys timestamps so you can see it. But I was like, did he just say that?
It kind of fits, and it didn't hit me until watching it this time when he was standing after Mrs. Hudson walks away, and he's talking to Sherlock's grave, and that, you know, John is kind of the Captain Kirk. He's the one with the gun. He's the one who's going to run around a lot, and Sherlock, though he's perfectly capable of violence and gets himself out of things with his fisticuffs and his superior Vulcan neck pinches or whatever he does. He's the more cerebral. He's going to figure it out. He's going to, and they would often, you know, Kirk would get frustrated with Spock at times, like John does with Sherlock. So, like,
That's really interesting.
It's interesting.
I wouldn't. I'm not a huge, but I've seen that, and I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but I can see that. Oh my god!
You should YouTube after this. Watch both scenes side by side. John talking to Sherlock's grave, and Captain Kirk's Spock's funeral speech. And then, of course, like any good Vulcan would have at their funeral, someone playing Scottish bagpipes, or English hymn. That's definitely honoring his heritage as you put him to rest.
Jeff, I'm a massive Trekkie. Rafa Khan is one of my favourite films of all time. And I'm so ashamed that I completely missed that reference. You've effectively ruined my night. I just want you to know.
But I'm with you, Sean. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, is in my top 10 of movies. I call it the near perfect movie. It is just start to finish. Amazing piece of cinema.
I like how they say your professional human.
His was the most human. You got to get just the right number of lip whistles in there.
And the right number of A's in Khan!
Yeah.
Which I believe is 16 or 15.
Depends on which cut you watch. There's a director's cut where it's 16. But...
Oh, fantastic.
It's funny that that's your favorite Star Trek movie, and that Ben Cumberbatch plays Khan in the remake.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
That is so true, Stacey. I didn't even make that connection.
I'm here. Yeah, I've never seen the remake.
That's amazing.
The first one?
The remake, the Chris Pine?
Oh, yeah,
No.
we did. I guess it was kind of, I don't know. My dad always watched the older Star Trek movies, so I remember those, but that Chris Pine one, I don't really
Into
remember it
Darkness.
that much.
I thought it was good.
It didn't leave a huge impression.
I thought it was okay.
I thought
Yeah,
it was-
that one, too.
Wrath of Khan is the first iteration. The second iteration is called Into Darkness. That's the Chris Pine version.
Okay.
And it
Sure.
was a not well executed twist that Benedict Cumberbatch was.
It around, yeah. Didn't go down very well with the fans.
No.
Oh, you Trekkies. Are you a Trekkie, Stacey, or am I the only one?
My husband is a Trekkie, and when he and I first started dating, he got me watching Voyager, and I loved it. But I've never been a big fan of the original, just because I started with Voyager, and so Voyager, Next Generation, all those, the 90s Star Treks are my favorite. But I do like the movies a lot with the original cast, but not the show. I just didn't watch much of it. Doesn't mean I don't like it. I just haven't seen that many.
If you are going to ever go back and anybody's going to watch the original cast movies, 2, 3, and 4 make a really good trilogy. They kind of all hang together and work really well together. And then ironically, Khan from The Wrath of Khan is based on one of the 1960s episodes. That character was a recurring character from that.
Ricardo Montalban, wasn't it? He played the really good, enigmatic character, brilliantly played.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to watch some Star Trek for our next TV series discussion.
Well, Steve, we could get Steve to do it.
Sure.
Brandy will just have to Vulcan neck pinch him until he.
She really knows how to do that. She just has a look. If you give me that, it's just that look, and I'm like, okay. We'll watch it.
I will say though that one of another touching line from this happens in that scene when he's talking to Sherlock's grave. One more miracle, please, for me. Don't be dead.
Yeah, don't be dead. Yeah. Oh, I got goosebumps.
It was good.
I liked it. I loved this season. 5 stars. Are we giving stars?
You can.
I'm so about stars right now.
5 thumbs in the fridge.
Yeah.
5 thumbs up in Mrs. Hudson's fridge.
That's the kind of rating Steve would give.
Yeah.
Steve and I have an ongoing debate about whether you give percentages or out of 10 or out of 5 or stars. He's wrong, of course, but you still
I'm wrong a lot.
What was your rating again for Nightmare? What did you say in the video?
Oh,
The
post-it notes.
Post-it notes.
Yeah. I try and find something from every book unless I guess I'm going to start reviewing books I don't enjoy now because of you guys. So, congratulations! I'm going to trash some books.
This is
You're
like
not gonna
totally
trash
not-
them
No, I'll
We're
be
gonna get
respectful.
Steve
Yeah.
being
constructively.
Constructive criticism.
So it's so funny you brought that up because I was just watching a review for Hail Mary by Brandon Sanderson. And he talks about how he never reviews a book unless he gives it 5 stars. So he says it's because for him, he's like, no author wants to have Brandon Sanderson say their book sucks.
Well, nobody
So if
cares
he
about
doesn't
me.
give it 5 stars, he won't review it. So there's another somebody on the other side who thinks that negative reviews are unnecessary as well.
And was it Richard Nell you were talking to on one of your last videos when he was talking about? Yeah. It is tough. I think as a writer, it's tough to, you just want to encourage other writers, so you try to find the positive and.
Yeah.
Well, and then when you were talking to what's the guy's name from Nightmare?
Chad Nicholas.
Yeah, he said he actually took some of the negative feedback into consideration when he did his next book because some of it he felt to be helpful, not disrespectful. So
yeah, I'm a do as I say, not as I do. I give only positive feedback, but I want like straight up feedback when people review my books. So.
Yeah. So now I'm going to do negative reviews. I have a few reviews I wrote a blog because one of them was an arc that I was sent, or not even an arc. It was just a book that they asked me to review, and so I wrote a blog about it, but I didn't make a video. So now I'm gonna go for it.
Good.
Yeah. So, and Jeff, you should come to our next Just Because meetup instead of just being in the chat.
Yeah, I wasn't in a good camera space then, but I wanted to participate some and throw some pithy comments in while you guys are going. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun.
We're gonna do that every so often. Stacy's doing the next one, I believe.
Next weekend.
Is it next weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's after the movie of the month, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and Jeff, you should join on that too.
We're just gonna take all
fill your
Jeff's
schedule.
time.
He's never gonna finish his book because we're just gonna keep him busy.
I know.
Raul will be very angry with me.
Yes, it will be.
Brandy, have you noticed a correlation between you admitting that you really like the evil guys and Steve 5 minutes later saying he wants to start writing bad reviews? Have you
We're awful people.
Just terrible people is
We're
what
just
it is.
all terrible, awful people.
Channeling his inner darkness.
Yeah, I blame Stacy.
I think he's saying that to us not getting. Jeff needs to write his book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did finish This People World, and I started on a bike ride. I started listening to it on my bike ride this week, and I was after every episode it stops. It doesn't play the next one on Apple Podcasts or whatever.
But you can set it to.
I didn't know that. So so I reached in my pocket and I pulled it out and I thought I was hitting next, and it started playing
This Burning World.
Burning World episode 1, and I was like, what is going on? So when that chapter stopped, I looked back and oh shit, I listened to the first chapter.
Oh, no.
That's why I'm confused.
She just spoiled it for himself.
So I was like, now I have to like unhear that.
Yeah,
But,
you can't.
yeah.
You can't unhear that.
Yeah.
Well, so the prologue from This Burning World fits nicely into the end of This Paper World. So
Yeah.
you just got a little sneak preview from a different perspective.
So it didn't spoil too much for me. So a little bit, but not too much. But it made sense when I finished This Burning World. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I know what I listened to. Yeah. Anyway,
Good stuff.
yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Good. Glad you liked it. Next time I will do more of my accents. I'll do
You
that.
have to do
Oh yeah, you forgot.
They're
you have
awesome.
to do French, and I was impressed. With the
good.
narration. I was honestly really impressed. I enjoyed it. And I don't listen to audiobooks at all, ever.
That's the first audiobook I've been able to convince him to listen to.
I did read about half of it. I did both, but
Every time I'm like, this audiobook is so good, you got to hear it, like Nosferatu but Jeff's, he's like, I'll listen to that one.
He's already gotten over the threshold of being annoyed by my voice, so he was good.
No, it's really,
Yeah,
it is actually
it is good.
really good.
It was really good.
It's really
Thank you.
Anyway, off topic, but
good. Okay, I know we went on.
That's
So
okay.
series 3, we're moving on.
yeah.
Yes.
Let's see. Let me look at the calendar.
I like
It's,
that show.
Have you noticed that this is like slightly shorter than the first one? So by the time we get to the end of season 4, it'd be like, how is it for you? It's great, thanks. Okay, bye.
Is the 13th a Sunday?
I don't know. I don't have a calendar.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
June 13th is a Sunday.
How does 2 p.m. Eastern time? So be 2 hours earlier. Would that work for everybody?
I think I
That
can-
works for me. Sean, is that okay for you?
It's probably better for me, yeah.
Okay. Let's
Everyone's
do
got a bed here.
Yeah, he's in the dark now.
that. Yeah.
I know.
We're keeping
My
him
wife's
up past
working at
the
6 in the morning, so she's gone to bed really early. So I'm
Oh.
sure she'll forgive me. So 7's better, I think.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Jeff, works
thank
for
you
you?
guys.
It was fun, guys.
That was really good, thank you.
Once again, had a blast chatting with you guys about this. Can't wait to do season 3 and then season 4, and then we'll see where we go from there. And
Yeah.
so Sean, get some sleep. Thank you for joining us. And Jeff, you always, it's a pleasure to have you on as well. I'm so honored to continue to get to chat with you. I will be reading the rest of your books, but I'm going to start with Three Scrooges because I really want to. Like I said, I love Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite Christmas stories.
You can read it for Christmas in June. It's perfect.
I will. I mean, I already read Nosferatu, so I got to have a good Christmas story to go after that.
Not to fanboy too hard. I don't want to sound pathetic or anything, but we do sit around and say, "Isn't it crazy we talked to Jeff Lane on like a regular? Isn't that crazy that we get to do that?"
I think
It's
just
the same thing in
because
my house. I'm like, isn't it crazy? I get to talk to Steve and Brandy and Stacy.
Oh, yeah, you don't ever say that, but because you guys are like our rock stars, like
Yeah.
we think of it like we sit around like, isn't it crazy that we sit and talk to Jeff? Like,
because I just really love the books. I'm gonna start the
she's ahead of me.
what's the last
Third
one?
book,
I know, but
the
Champions World, right?
Champions Saga. Was the world?
Yeah, the last one. And is it any mistake that it says champion across your chest right now?
Branding.
He's on
All
brand.
about branding.
Yeah,
You
he's
can
on
But
pick
I'm
up my
so-
Champion Saga merch at most sporting goods shops.
But I'm excited, and I just really enjoy everything I've read. So it
Awesome.
is like you're like a rock
Thank
star.
Yeah, we're like, isn't it nuts? We get to talk to Jeff Lane like
so-
on a regular basis. This
yeah.
is crazy. So anyway,
Pleasure is all mine. You guys are a fun group.
All right. Well, we'll see you 2 weeks.
okay.
Bye, guys.
Sounds
Bye,
good.
Alan. Bye, Jeff.
Bye.